With over 100 products in their licensing portfolio, Focus Brands is a leading example of how this is done. And just think of some of the brands they have: Aunt Annie's, Carvel, Cinnabon. They almost sell themselves, among others. They're ready-made for this model. So to explore how they're coming at it, I want to welcome Kerri Christian, who's the VP of Marketing at Focus Brands. Kerri, how are you? How are you?
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good to see you again. Tell us where you're coming from.
I am in Atlanta. This is where we're based. Yes.
So it's getting a little steamy down there.
You better believe it.
Kerri leads marketing research and development and direct-to-consumer initiatives for the company's global channel licensing division. As I said, this oversees over 100 parent products. But Kerri has worked across both retail and CPG, both at Procter & Gamble, Home Depot, as well as a previous gig at Wendy's. Kerri's going to talk to us about her perspective on licensing, the ways in which Focus comes at this, and then I'm going to come back in with some questions before we open it up for all of you. So Kerri, I'm just going to let you take it away.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'll share my screen here. Just 1 minute. There we go. And while the technical difficulties occur, let's try this one more time.
I think you got it.
There we go.
Go ahead.
Okay, let me get it in presentation mode and then we can get started with the discussion. All right, you already gave us a great introduction. So again, I'm Kerri Christian, Vice President of Marketing for our Global Channels Licensing Division at Focus Brands. So we are an Atlanta-based company. Focus Brands has 7 iconic brands that I'm sure you all know, love, and crave. And you see some of our brands on the screen right there. In terms of our Global Channels licensing business, we actually are a part of Focus Brands, a team of Focus Brands that sits outside of our 7 brands. And so when you think about the work that our team does, we like to say we give our fans a taste of our brands outside of our traditional franchise locations. So anytime you see our brands expressed in product formats in verticals like CPG, grocery stores, Costco, et cetera, or food service partners like a Pizza Hut, or in schools, hospitals, theaters, as well as e-commerce with partners like Amazon, that's the work that our team does. So we have a team full of marketing, culinary, as well as the business development team members that really help us develop these products and license these products from end to end. So we're starting with consumer insights, consumer trends, taking that all the way through launch, and then what you see either on menu or in shelf in grocery. So from a global channel standpoint, we talked about it. We have over 100 products in our pipeline with 30 different partners, and I'll talk about kind of our business model. We are the #4 brand licensor in the world in terms of food and beverage, and we do about 1.9 billion in retail revenue. So really, it is a good sized business for us and something that helps us extend access to our brands, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. In terms of our business model, we are asset light. So everything that we do is through partnerships with manufacturers. So you can think about our CPG partnerships with Kellogg, with Pillsbury, upcoming with Nestle. We partner with these big leading blue chip CPG firms, and we look at food service partners that are leading category leaders, and also do our distribution through those types of partnerships. So everything is asset light. We don't manufacture anything here at Focus Brands, and that is our business model. We know that there are different licensing models depending on the company, but that's what we do here at Focus Brands and have found great success with that. When you think about why licensing, It really starts with the consumer, and it really starts with meeting the consumer demands and how the just landscape is changing. I mean, if COVID didn't show us anything else, it showed us that we need to be able to pivot, evolve, and be accessible to our consumers. Last year during COVID, when it first hit, a lot of our brands, our food service franchise locations were closed. When you think about Cinnabon, traditionally in malls and airports. So the traffic was low or some of the locations were closed. But we had Cinnabon products on shelf in grocery that allowed our consumers, again, to get access to our brands in a way that was relevant and craveable for them. Some of the benefits of licensing. So outside of the traditional financial benefits, when you think about royalty revenue, when you think about contribution, when you think about margin, there are also benefits from a brand building perspective. So we've already talked about brand access. Cinnabon with 350 bakeries in the US, only 50% of our consumers have access to the brand. But through licensing and extending that brand, again, in CPG, e-commerce, and through food service, we're able to give consumers access to the brand in relevant ways. We're driving awareness. A lot of our brands have very small marketing budgets. We do most of our marketing activation through social, digital, and PR, quite frankly. And so through these partnerships, like with Pizza Hut, with Taco Bell, we are able to extend that awareness through TV and through all of the other touch points and marketing activation that we can do with these big food service partners as well as CPG partners. When we think about the packaging that we have on shelf in retail as well within CPG, that's another awareness point for us. So we don't take this lightly. When we think about the reach as well, we continue to reach our target in a relevant way, but we're also extending and growing our database. And through our partnerships and through our packaging, we're able to actually, we talked about first party data, and I heard that mentioned before we got into this presentation. We're actually able to bring new customers into the fold, into the brand, and bring them in and keep them in a way that drives loyalty. When we also think about our business, we think about the ecosystem, the brand and the franchise ecosystem. So we are a franchise business. So when we think about the other benefits to the ecosystem, they include innovation. So a lot of innovation is born out of our global channels team, and we're able to leverage that, quite frankly, with our brands. And as well as supply chain leverage. When you think about some of the ingredients that we're using, how does that drive scale? How does that drive economies of scale across the board? And then lastly, we also, from a global channel standpoint, contribute money back to our brand's ad funds to help with that brand ecosystem and to support the brand ecosystem. So those are just some of the benefits of licensing that we see from our model here at Focus Brands. I'm going to talk a little bit about two examples within CPG and also food service, and I'm going to stay with the Cinnabon brands, but we have licensing across many of our brands. Auntie Anne's, we have frozen pretzels within CPG. We are also in schools with Auntie Anne's. We have a long-standing partnership with one of our manufacturers, and we have Carvel ice cream cakes in a number of doors and a number of store locations across the US. As well as with Jamba and with Mode. So we are doing licensing across many of our brands and will continue to expand as we see new opportunities. But let's stick with Cinnabon. So when we think about CPG, we just launched Cinnabon breakfast in grocery last year. We saw that breakfast was growing even before COVID, as more consumers were starting to eat at home. And we saw that just skyrocket during COVID. So we were prepared to meet that trend, meet that insight. And we started to develop Cinnabon breakfast products that would meet that demand. And in doing so, we were able to extend not only access to the brand, awareness of the brand, but also bring that brand into an occasion, a day part that was very relevant for Cinnabon. And so breakfast was a very new day part. We are in it from a franchise location in a small way, but this launch in CPG just expanded and exploded our presence within breakfast. So we had 6 SKUs that we launched in May of last year. We initially launched with Walmart and then expanded rapidly into other retailers after that. We have 3 sweet SKUs and 3 delicious savory SKUs, breakfast sandwiches, that we have on shelf at many, many retailers. Some of the key results: we're on shelf at over 9,000 retailers. At Walmart, within 6 months, we became the #1 frozen pastry brand. So we are actually, with our #1 SKU, outselling the competition, the next #2 competitor, 2-to-1. We have the top 3 SKUs within the top 10 within Walmart, and we're set to launch phase 2 innovation based on the success of phase 1. Another benefit to this is that we were able to actually support this in a big way from a marketing standpoint. So again, getting back to that awareness point and the fact that we're able to drive trial, awareness, relevancy, and consideration for the brand through many, many support tactics that you see there: social, digital, PR, etc. Then from a food service standpoint, when you think about our partnership with Pizza Hut, we partnered with Pizza Hut beginning in 2018, and we're going to extend our partnership with them. This was another way for us to drive brand access, awareness, and relevancy. So when we think about, our partnership with Pizza Hut, they were actually looking for a dessert brand that was craveable, that was shareable, and that would allow them to extend their reach to millennial families. And Cinnabon fit the bill. And so we launched what we call Cinnabon mini rolls with Pizza Hut. So there are 10 mini rolls baked together, shareable with our signature cream cheese frosting. And again, we launched in 2018, October of 2018, across all of their US locations. Based on the success of that launch, we have expanded internationally into Canada and Latin America, and continuing to put our eye on other countries where we'll have expansion. But when you think about one of the benefits of this partnership, again, our brands have relatively small budgets, but we've been able to be on TV with Pizza Hut. And in fact, our first year, we were on TV 6 times with Pizza Hut, featuring our Cinnabon mini rolls product. So again, accessing the brand, driving awareness, and driving that relevancy is something that came through with this joint marketing activation. When you think about the results, we've sold over 145 million Cinnabon mini rolls just last year. A fun fact, we're selling over 425,000 Cinnabon mini rolls a day per store. And that's huge. That's huge. We've heard from Pizza Hut that it drives check, and it's also brought new customers, new guests into Pizza Hut. And we know that we're the #1 selling dessert on their menu. So just wanted to share 2 kind of case studies, 2 success stories with you through licensing, one with Cinnabon in CPG and another one in food service. Some of the key takeaways when you think about licensing: start and end with the consumer and the customer. I used to work at P&G, and one of the mantras was the consumer is boss. That reigns true here. Everything that we do starts with the consumer in mind. It starts with an insight. It starts with a piece of data. And we continue to keep the consumer, the customer in mind all the way through the process. So we are testing, we are doing research, we're doing surveys among our customers, our consumers, to make sure that we're hitting on exactly what they're looking for. Define the licensing business model. So again, everything we do is through manufacturing partnerships. You have to define what your licensing model should be for your company, what's right for your brand. We want to be asset light, and that is the decision that we've made. So everything that we make from a revenue standpoint is actually driven through legal contracts, and we have royalty revenue that comes into focus brands. So that's how we go to market. You should also consider the brand and the franchise ecosystem. Again, if you're a franchise brand, if you're a franchise company, you want to make sure that you're differentiating what you offer in your licensing portfolio versus maybe what you have in the restaurants. You want to drive that separation. You want to think about how do you drive additional occasions that won't take away visits or traffic from your franchise locations. Identify your licensing goals. What are your goals? Is it to drive brand awareness, trial? What is it? And then define that success criteria and continue to monitor that and make sure you evaluate your progress. Implement a defined process and team. We have a defined stage gate process, a funnel process, where we bring each idea, each proposition, each project or initiative into these meetings, and we evaluate them based on a number of different measures: size of prize, resources, brand fit, consumer fit, et cetera. So we have a very repeatable, scalable model that we leverage. We also have a dedicated team, and that is, again, the model that we use here. You may be able to absorb it into your brand team, depending on how big you want to go with your licensing initiative, but that's what we do here, again, at Focus Brands. You want to establish and align product and branding guardrails. So again, we always think about our franchise ecosystem. We want to make sure we have some differentiation when it comes to menu items versus what we have in our licensing portfolio. We think about size, we think about product format, we think about ingredients, pricing, all of those different things that, again, can make sure that we have a healthy ecosystem. And then lastly, we're always looking for ways to jointly activate with our partners. And so we sit down and have joint marketing and business reviews many times during the year with our partners, and making sure that we are aligning with key messaging, key initiatives, and how we actually support this from a marketing standpoint. So those are some of the key takeaways when it comes to our licensing model. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Kerri. Well, I've got a zillion. And I'm going to shut up in a second, but please, everybody, get ready. Please start raising your hands and putting questions in the chat window so that we can get to you. So you mentioned, and I hadn't talked to you about this before because I didn't realize how reliant you are on digital media to push these licensed items. Could you take us inside a little bit, the tactics, the digital tactics that you use, what audiences you're aiming for, what sets of behaviors you're trying to get at, what the messaging looks like? So when you're using primarily digital channels to push a set of, say, grocery shopping behaviors, what does that look like in terms of what the campaign is like and how you're doing it?
Well, it all depends on the initiative. So it depends on the initiative and it depends on the partner and the objectives that we set out jointly to reach, right? So if I take an example of Kellogg's, we are launching Kellogg's cereal jumbo snacks here in a few weeks. And so when I think about the objective or how we do this joint marketing activation, we sit down and we actually talk about what the objectives are. So whether it be trial, awareness, whether it be repeat, we talk about what is the key messaging that we're going to jointly share. We talk about the target audiences. Sometimes Kellogg's will go after their target audience, and then they'll rely on Cinnabon to go after theirs if there's a difference. So maybe we go after millennial families and maybe they go after a separate target. And then when we think about that joint, the media plan, we are sitting down and actually planning together, what that looks like. And so from a Cinnabon standpoint, we have our own set of agencies. We have our own content creative team in-house. So we develop concepts based on the objective, based on the brief. And then we jointly share that back with our manufacturing partner like Kellogg to make sure that we are all aligned and all ships rise.
How do you know when it comes to brand building, and these are brand exercises, as you said, when you're putting these things not only in partnerships with like a Pizza Hut, but when you're putting them in stores, you're essentially buying mind share. You're putting billboards in where people shop. How do you measure the effectiveness of that? How do you know you're really brand building or that you're even driving behaviors for people going directly to Annie Ann's or to Cinnabon?
That's a great question. So through great partners like Pizza Hut, through partners like Kellogg, they have access to, you know, marketing mix modeling. They have access to actually, you know, separate, okay, from a dessert standpoint, how many new customers am I bringing in? You know, how is it contributing to driving check? So they have visibility to that, and they share that data with us. From a focus brand standpoint, we're actually able to look at certain things such as impressions, click-throughs. You know, if we're doing an e-commerce only campaign, we can take it all the way to purchase. So it just depends on the partnership, the initiative, but we have a lot of tools that allow us to look at, you know, trial through our partnerships, whether it be impressions, awareness, and we're actually finding a way now from a focus brand standpoint to actually say, how do our impressions, our awareness actually have an impact on sales that we're driving at our franchise locations? I'm
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
There are a bunch of questions piling up, so I want to get out of their way.
Okay.
But there's one real thing that came up in your presentation that really piqued my interest, and that is direct e-commerce. What kind of e-commerce have you been doing over the last year? When, where, and why are people wanting to get their Cinnabons directly from you by e-commerce?
I'll tell you, this is new for us. This is relatively new for us, and this is a focus area for us. And I think, you know, again, born out of COVID, we saw that the need was increasing. Prior to Global Channels taking on corporate e-commerce, and we just took it on maybe 3-4 months ago, we had partnerships with specialty e-commerce retailers like Harry and David.
Can I please have a pad thai salad with tofu?
If you go on harryanddavid.com, you will see Cinnabon on that site, and you will see us selling Cinnabon Cinnapacks or our multi-packs of cinnamon rolls. We also have a Cinnabon cheesecake, and we also have a Cinnabon mousse munch or popcorn. And so that was an early iteration or an early partnership, and it was a proof point for us to say, yes, our consumers actually want access to our brands via e-commerce. So we are in the process now of really identifying what those other opportunities are. I can tell you that through our partnerships with our manufacturers like Kellogg, like Pillsbury, we're looking at how do we expand what we're doing with Amazon? How do we expand what we're doing from an e-retailer standpoint? So yeah, we're on shelf at Walmart, but what are we doing to increase our e-presence on walmart.com? We're also looking at promotions and partnerships with grocery apps like Instacart and Shipt. So all of that is within scope. So you're going to see a lot more from us from an e-commerce direct-to-consumer standpoint.
Okay, I'm going to shut up and ask Lisa to come in and manage the questions that I see already coming in.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we have Ross waiting. I think we heard him ordering lunch.
He made me hungry.
Ross, you there for a question?
Yeah, no, sorry about that. I was asked to unmute, and then I realized I had to get my order in because we're getting busy, and so I apologize. So, but you're all welcome to come eat with me. Wonderful. So I have a question. So I'm a recently launched QSR business. The brand is called Bistro Burger, and I have a second brand. It's called Purple Thai. They're both plant-based, 100% plant-based, and we're developing a virtual franchise model. And you know, one of the things we're debating, and as I listen to you talk, how do you control product quality, and how do you control the user experience across all these channels? It's just, as you say, asset light. You know, where's, you know, how, I guess, and I guess with that, you make them buy your product. Is that how you ensure that they buy everything from you?
Yeah, we have a well-defined QA process. And so we do a lot of due diligence to ensure our partnerships, as well as the production facilities, are all meeting our brand standards, right? Our focus brand standards. So that is something that we put a significant amount of focus on. So up front, we're vetting all of our manufacturing partners, all of our manufacturing facilities. And then on the back end, once we launch, we're actually doing a lot of what we call in-field visits. We're doing in-store visits. We are hiring third party to come in and do, some of those.
So you have high
shopper-
labor, so you have low assets, but then you have high labor costs.
So when we partner through our manufacturers, so again, if I take a Kellogg as an example, we are using Kellogg and their manufacturing facility to develop that product.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ross. Well, and we have a question from Jeff Katz, and he is asking, is Cinnabon thinking of developing a perfume? He wants to get some for his wife.
That's very interesting. I would say in the days before I came on board, we had everything from candles to lip balm and things like that. I think as we've evolved and we've gotten a little bit more strategic and put the consumer first, we let the consumer tell us where they want us to go next. So if they say perfume and it's a big enough size of prize and it's relevant for the brand, who knows?
Well, I think Cinnabon, that would be, I think that would be a popular scent for people to buy. So sounds good.